to the Village of Mount Pleasant Plan Commission meeting for October 23rd, 2024. We've got a pretty big agenda, so we're going to try and stay on track as much as possible. I might be calling for a break depending on how things are going, what the time is. Roll call, please, Lisa.
Oh, well, I can do it.
Or Robin.
Driver,
Here.
Washburn,
Here.
Bhatia is excused. Bozanovsky,
Here.
Meyer is excused. Rissler,
Here.
Van Beckham.
Here.
Next
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the September 18th, 2024 meeting minutes. And I will be recusing myself because I was not here.
Chairman Davis, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from September 18th, 2024.
Second.
I think one addition or one change would be adding Tom Van Beckham to the here list. I think on the minutes it says he is not.
I was not here last week.
You were not.
Or last month.
Okay, so Tom was not. We're good to go. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is Resolution 17-2024 for 11508 Braun Road Comprehensive Plan Amendment, CPA 24-1.
Mr. Chairman, board members, kind of here in replacing Sam. I know Sam has been excused today. So this is really goes back to, we did this and also in Area 3. It's just cleaning up some roads in the comprehensive man plan for 2035. That's really all this is. We had the public hearing at the village board already. No one was there for or against. Just cleaning up some roads that obviously we know now today what the development is, and these roads need to no longer be there. So just asking for your approval to move this on.
Okay.
Any questions? You got Sam's write-up. It's pretty straightforward.
Just to give you a little clue. I'm going up, and I have to go down. The particular roads in question, these are the proposed roads map layer. One is the realignment of the frontage road. The other one is basically the continuation of International or V down through the site. And another one is a straight alignment of International Drive. This one is an alignment of Globe Drive that goes all the way through a bunch of buildings, and this is another realignment of the frontage road that is probably not going to happen because we've already kind of paved and done other projects to do that. So we're basically trying to get that layer as an adopted portion that is an adopted portion of our comp plan, so we need to kind of start treating it like it and keep updating it and amending it when we need to.
All right. Any questions for Claude or the staff?
No, this is, we've continued to do these as the areas 3A and B and more in the develop, and this is completely now getting our comprehensive plan in line with what is actually going to happen out there. And so I would make a motion to approve Resolution 17-2024 for 11508 Brown Road, the Comprehensive Plan Amendment, CPA 24-1.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any public comment on this? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, if there's no objection, I would like to move up number 1 from new business to the next slot here. Any objections?
No objection?
Okay. Then we will be discussing 4811's County Trunk H, Site Plan Review SP 24-18.
Again, kind of stepping in for Sam. You have Sam's write-up. This is just a couple of minor changes to it, nothing of any substance. They redid a couple landscaping things and some driveway things like that. There is no recommendations, there's no conditions as far as approval. So again, just happy to keep this project moving forward and look forward to your approval on the item at hand, CP 24-18.
Yeah, just to kind of clarify that the code gives the community development director the power to authorize alternative landscape compliance plans that meet the spirit in the code but aren't exactly to spec. In this case, the trees and stuff like that are there. They're just not within 50 feet of the required parking lot. However, because this is in TID 5, Sam does not have the unilateral power to approve site plans in TID 5. So that's why this is here.
That's back here.
Well, I'm certainly gonna trust that Sam has put enough trees around the parking lot to satisfy the village, and I think Microsoft has a lot of good plans for the inside there. It's a very interesting complex, so I don't have any further questions. I would make a motion to approve the 4811 site, County Trunk Highway H site plan review, SP-24-18.
Second.
Motion and a second. I think second was Frank Risler. Any further questions or comments? Any public comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Chair.
Keep up the good work on that site. Thank you. All right, back to old business. The Vilas at Coach Hills condominium plat application CP 24-1. The Villas, I'm sorry.
The
Yeah,
Violets?
the Vilas.
Violet.
That's interesting.
like violence.
It's their new villas. They're smaller.
So I will go ahead and call to question that the next 3 items in old business are, they're all items that we've seen before, have received no changes. And because they're past 1 year, they need to be reapplied for and resubmitted and approved. I believe all of you were here or were on the Plan Commission when these items were initially reviewed. So I would suggest that potentially these items be grouped together and passed via voice vote, just to save some time, unless anybody has any questions or concerns.
I guess, Robin, real quick, I can understand the first 2 are the same villas, Coach Hills project, but the third one is a different project.
Yeah.
So doing all 3 together, what's your thought process, doing all 3?
Oh, the fact that they've all been approved by the Plan Commission and Village Board, and they've remained functionally identical to when they were approved. And the only thing that's different is the fact that it's been a year, so they have to reapply. They still go back to the Village Board, and will probably be placed on the consent. Basically, I'm asking a consent agenda approval.
Okay, but again, as far as the third one, though, your request would be consent approval with the 3 conditions noted, correct?
Correct.
Whereas the first 2 have no conditions.
Yes.
Okay.
And those are standards.
Yeah, and these are the ones that got caught up in the water issue,
Yeah.
so that's some delays there. So do you want us to make a motion on all 3, or just take
Yeah.
each one, bang, bang, bang?
All 3 is fine.
Okay. You cruising, sir? Okay, so we're looking for a motion?
Sure. Do you want us to, for the record, include, well, we're going to make 3 motions. One is to move to recommend approval of the villas at Coach Hills condo plat CP-24-1.
You could recommend basically say recommend approval of items 2, 3, and 4
I would.
to the Village Board.
All right, with that, I'm prepared to make a motion to recommend the approval of items 2, 3, and 4 with the proviso that item number 4 includes 3 conditions that are conditions to our consent.
Good.
Second.
Motion a second. Any further discussion? Any public comment on this? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed?
Nancy Washburn needs to recuse herself from those items in the vote.
Got that, Lisa? Good to go. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye, we already went through that, never mind. Motion approved. Okay, then next, down back to new business. 10-460 Washington Avenue zoning map amendment, ZMA 24-8.
Okay, so this is right here next in the Renaissance Business Park. This is the zoning map amendment. This is related to the next item, which is the site plan amendment. Penny Bogard and Tom Martell of Keller Incorporated applied on behalf of future owner Joanne Peterman of Urban Trend Salon Spa to amend the zoning map from C4, which is general industrial, to C2, which is neighborhood business, for 2.184 acres on the corner of Washington Boulevard, State Highway 20, and Renaissance Boulevard. This application is concurrent with SB 2419, which plans to relocate Urban Trend Salon Spa to their own newly constructed building and rebranded as Beauty and Soul Salon and Wellness. 5,000 square feet will be used for the salon, and the other 3,400 square feet will be used for future tenant space. While the use is permitted in the C4 zone, the applicants are proposing a less intense use and would like to get away from the requirement to build a two-story structure that is currently in place in the C4 zoning district. Basically going down through the application, just on a fiscal note, that the Go into the ratio. The revenue to cost ratio is 4-to-1, and the public to private is 8-to-1, where we're aiming to 1-to-1 or 40-to-1. However, that is including state trunk highway 20, which we don't actually pay for, the state maintains. So without that inclusion, this is served by public or private roadway, accessed off the back, and so the public-private benefit is like kind of infinity because you can't divide by zero. So additional considerations, because this is a down zone, I'm going to sort of give a spiel. In staff's opinion, down zoning, which is a zoning map amendment from a higher intensity to a lower intensity, is not something that should be undertaken frequently and should be carefully considered. The primary argument against them is that land should be given to the highest and best use, which may not always conform to the use that's available right now. In support of this is that the developer wishes to downzone in order to save the cost from constructing the two-story building and would conceivably have a higher assessment value. Additionally, areas zoned for low intensity are prevalent throughout the village, and areas zoned for high intensity are rarer. A main distinction between the various commercial districts is the type of traffic that separates or frequents them. C2 is generally neighborhood level uses, and C3 is large scale retail, regional scale retail, commercial and grocery, and C4 is general industrial and freight logistics, with frequent trucking traffic but low personal vehicle traffic. Hence, retail sales are not an allowed use in C4. However, zoning map amendments are purely discretionary decisions by the village board, bounded only by guidance of the comprehensive plan, which simply suggests business park or commercial uses for this property. And the prevailing notion that the property has been empty since the business park was developed in the mid-2000s. So when you're considering the highest and best use, any use is certainly higher than no use over the past 2 decades. The development and expansion of a local small business owner very well could be the best use for the land. So that's that. So with that, the staff recommends that approval, and that approval be conditional on the approval of Site Plan 2419. And I'm open to any questions.
Go ahead, Tom.
Sam, I have some concerns going back to
Third
your...
time. Third time in the last 2 days someone's called me Sam.
You've been called worse.
No, it's a compliment. He is a gentleman and a scholar.
Continuing on. Your notes that talk about downsized zoning should not be taken on lightly, and I think there should be some really good reason to do it. And I just don't sense those reasons here. I mean, particularly when you're going down 2 steps. It's not C4 to C3, it's a double jump from C4 to C2. And C2 neighborhood business use doesn't seem to me to be compatible with what's going on in that area. And the fact that the site has been vacant since the mid-2000s, there could be a lot of reasons for that, including, and most likely, the owner hasn't marketed well, or he's asked too much money for it. So the fact that someone's come along now and agreed on a price with the owner doesn't in and of itself sway me, particularly when I don't know any circumstances to why it didn't move by now. So I just fail to see some compelling use to do a double downsized jump for this property. And I recognize this prospective owners has obviously spent a lot of time and money on plans and everything else going on, but
Yeah.
they did that without having the zoning in place, so.
Yeah, you're totally right on taking that consideration, and that is a consideration that staff undertook, and that's why, that's a part of our job to put that out there. And so we kind of, did the analysis, the numbers are in front of you and stuff like that. So even though this is a one-story building, it's fairly high dollar amount. It's not a simple strip center or anything like that. So it's coming in at about $2.25 million, which is about $1 million an acre, which is kind of our target threshold rate ratio. The two-story requirement is fairly recent, adopted with the architectural standards and when we changed over to C districts. So all of that kind of combined, you're totally right. And kind of looking at the package deal, staff is comfortable with it. I mean, at some time, it's you wait and wait and wait, and at some time you're just like, okay, well, this is pretty good, and the site is fairly awkward as far as the location and the access, and the eastern portion of it, the western portion of it there's a fair amount of wetlands on that portion, and as well there's a 100-foot setback from the developer, MLG, has put a 100-foot setback from the Washington Avenue. So that basically eliminates most of that western half. So it is something to discuss and address. So anybody else want to chime in, that's great.
I'm just going to mention that I don't have a problem with the building, the use someplace else. It seems to be a quality building. I'm not concerned about the one story versus two stories, just the zoning and the use itself. And I don't see a compelling reason why and the project shouldn't be somewhere, particularly when your own notes indicate there's plenty of areas in the village that are vacant in C2. And again, I don't sense that the staff really knows why the site hasn't been developed in the last 20 years. And it could be the owner, and it could be the price. Again, I don't know. We could speculate all day, but I don't want to cut the current owner carte blanche to have his property rezoned
Okay.
because he sat on it for 20 years or 15 years or whatever it's been.
Yeah.
So I'm not inclined to vote for this for those reasons, and certainly my fellow commissioners can address the project, and I'll let them do so.
Yeah, the developers have been made aware that there is a potential another avenue to accomplish the same goal, and that's through a zoning variance request. But that's not guaranteed, and while this option was on the table, they chose to go through this option because it's the cleaner and more direct one. So you always want to go for the zoning option rather than a variance request if possible.
Nancy?
Thank you. So, Commissioner Van Beckham, I am going to disagree with you a little bit here. Urban Trends is a local business, and I'm very happy to see them wanting to expand to this size facility and increase the size of their wellness facility as well as their salon space. They currently have a location directly to the west of Renaissance Boulevard, next to the subway. This particular parcel, when you look at a view corridor along Highway 20, I think in C4, most people are looking for that front view onto Highway 20. In this particular location, what you catch is it's the hillside, because this is where Highway 20 is starting to go down under the viaduct. And so this property has almost zero the ability to look at it you're looking uphill at it. So obviously, it's a specialized facility, it's a destination facility. That parcel is very difficult, it's right up against the railroad tracks. It's in an area where you have other services like it, the dental facility and so forth. So in that regard, I think that this is an appropriate downzoning. The fact that it is a current business owner that wants to expand in our community and has a pre-existing site plan that was reviewed prior to our new zoning code taking place. So I think that, in view of that, I would support the down zoning to the C2.
I think that was well said. Thank you.
Just so I understand, is it the case that this site plan was developed by this applicant prior to this lot being put in C4 industrial zoning?
I think so. The applicant is here, I believe, and could speak to that, but I'm pretty sure they were about concurrent because we adopted those C standards in fall of 2023.
So-
And this has been in that pipe for around there.
So what was the zoning when the applicant started this process?
It was C4, but that allowed a one-story use, and the zoning allowed this type of use as well. The C4 district only
Exactly.
outlines retail zoning, or retail uses. So it's certainly worth discussing, and the other thing about it is that as a C4 site, the parcel is small. For C4 sites, a lot of times you want the freight logistics one, and that's in the back there, something that size, or a data center, stuff like that. They tend to be bigger. So there's a way of shaking it in a lot of different ways. Before our zoning code change, all of that was business park, BP zoning, because it was initially founded in the village of Sturtevant as a business park. So not only have we taken the land from Sturtevant, we're also taking one of the businesses too, so 2 for 1.
Well, the vagaries of the lot, certainly, the owner had plenty of time to reprice his property according to the vagaries and whatever warts the property had, and he certainly could have come along in here and sought a rezoning prior to this. So again, I'm not swayed by that. The only thing that might sway me is the fact that zoning might have allowed this when they first put all this time and effort into it. So I'm going to be quiet at this point and let somebody else talk.
No, I'm glad that's the discussion we wanted to have. That's why I put it in those considerations, so.
Yeah. Any further discussions? Is the applicant here? Would you like to hear from the applicant?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's fine if they want to speak. I don't dissuade them, but
Would
it's
the
not
applicant like
required.
to speak?
Okay.
Okay. All right, do we have any other questions of staff? If not, then what's your pleasure?
Hearing none, I'd like to make a motion to approve zoning map amendment, the 10460 Washington Avenue zoning map amendment, ZMA-24-8,
Subject to the one listed condition.
subject to the one listed condition, of course.
And that's ordinance 19-2024, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Second.
We already have a second. Tosh, you seconded? Okay, we have a motion, and a second. Any further discussion? Any public comment on that? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-1. Next would be this on the same property, 10460 Washington Avenue Site Plan Review, SP 24-19.
Oh, I didn't get to the, oh, there it is. These are the elevations of the site. Basically the north, what you're gonna be looking at.
Beautiful building.
Yeah, so. Okay, so we're gonna go to the site plan review. So same introduction, and the site plan, we're gonna go down through here. So now that it's adopted at C2, it generally meets those particular building and lot standards. There is one sort of hiccup is because the C2, it needs to be maximum of 240 feet wide, but since they access, this is a double frontage lot, and they access off the frontage towards the back, we basically assume that counts, especially since you can't use most of that parcel off to the west. I'm confirmed that with Sam as well. So we went through the review, as you can kind of look through the packet, and provided extensive amounts of comments and conditions. So everything meets it. So the conditions are that they have to show us the parapet design. They have parapets. I couldn't tell if it meant 36 inches. I think the big one to talk about separately is the parking. So they are over the allowed maximum for parking. We have maximums for parking for stormwater related reasons and all that sort of stuff. It's at four spots per 1,000 for retail use. At about 8,500, they are allowed a maximum of 33. They're coming in at like 54. We have several options to deal with that. So one is that they can provide some sort of parking study or traffic analysis, especially of their current site, that would justify that amount of parking. They could have basically green infrastructure or permeable pavers or something like that to offset the stormwater impacts for that service. They can enter a shared parking agreement, as well as there's one last one, which I forgot, but they're outlined some things you can do with a community development director. It's mostly just kind of to prevent certain things uses from going way overboard. Obviously, everybody knows that certain lots in Mount Pleasant, there's tumbleweeds in the outer lots, and it's just an asphalt desert. So we're trying to avoid that, and this is the way we do it. Currently, their landscape plan is actually over what they need, but with fewer parking spaces, with fewer landscape requirements. So that's just a conversation that is to be had. They have a couple different choices, and I haven't really heard which way they're leaning on that one. But when we had the pre-application meeting, it was to provide adequate evidence of that parking demand. Because the salon has individual booths, they don't take up a lot of space, a lot of employees, a lot of customers there at one time. So we're open to that, seeing evidence of that. So continuing on, that they either provide sidewalks or multi-use pathways along the public frontage of the road, or provide a written statement from WSDOT saying that the department does not require such facilities or would actively reject them in the right-of-way, or utilize the in lieu of payment system, which basically, because of its infeasible and as a rural cross-section to put in the sidewalk, they take basically the average of our public works department for construction of sidewalk and put it into a specialized sidewalk fund, where we use that to address areas with sidewalk gaps that are of higher need. That's that option. Then the last one, show drive aisle crossings for internal pedestrian circulation, and there's a couple different points on lighting, including the temperature at 3,000 or below. The heights of the poles need to be 30 feet and have specifications for building mounted lighting. So that's that review. Mostly it hinges on the parking.
Tom?
Two questions. In practice, what does Wisconsin DOT usually do as far as sidewalks in these situations?
They don't like putting them in themselves, but they usually don't mind them putting it in. We've gotten some feedback from WSDOT that they wouldn't be opposed to sidewalk construction on here, considering that there is some over there on the Ascension building, which is the newest constructed building on this stretch. The surgical center, it's across Renaissance. But this is basically the start of the sidewalk dead zone. Here, west is no man's land. Even though I have definitely seen people walking or especially riding bikes along that stretch, we would recommend basically a 10-foot off-street asphalt path to keep people out, because people haul on that section of 20. But this is the section where it's basic. Anything east of here, the sidewalks will be required, and we wouldn't allow the in lieu of fee.
So if this is, I think this tends to be staff's general language, provide sidewalks unless they provide a written statement from WSDOT saying the department does not require such facilities. So from what I'm hearing, is WSDOT's general default provision is to not require such facilities, so therefore, there won't be sidewalks.
So, Sam and I have had discussions, so not require and then specifically forbid is kind of,
Correct.
That's almost our judgment call as far as which one we want there. But if WSDOT goes, meh, I don't care, then yeah, they can be required to put in the sidewalk. It is their right of way, so they're not necessarily going to demand others install sidewalks.
So staff makes sort of a judgment call, which would, okay, that's, and I understand your call in this case. All right, I don't know if, I guess that's it. Oh, just, why would 20 more parking spaces create the possibility of a parking lot desert that's not being maintained? It seems such a, I mean, it's not much additional parking to create a,
It is. So it is sometimes the most harsh on the smaller uses, but it is to prevent the larger ones from going really overboard. We have to set some standard and apply it equally. We give lots of ways to kind of prove or justify that parking requirement. I think even just the simple justification that you're going to meet this or need this on the regular is good, because we don't want people building parking lots for Black Friday. That's one day out of 365. And then the other 365, that's basically putting stormwater into our stormwater system and not actually being used for parking. And parking lots don't pay taxes, really. So those are all kind of considerations to do. But we provide avenues in order to get around it. If these parking spaces were permeable, like that they allowed stormwater infiltration, then they're fine.
Works in Florida, it doesn't work here very well.
Yeah, the clay is a trough. In order to make it work here, you actually probably have to dig out the clay, replace it with some sort of pebbles, loam kind of system, and then, yeah, it's a pain in the butt. But it's available if you want to do it.
And they have other options.
Let's just give the options.
Mr. Chairman, I can see where Urban Trends might be looking and thinking a little bit over in parking based on their current parking. Being next to a Subway and next to a real estate office, they don't, it gets crowded over there. So hopefully that Urban Trends will be able to make decisions in that regard. It'll save them money in asphalt, and paving if they don't need all those spaces, and it would be green space to us, which would certainly be more favorable. But otherwise, I think it's a very lovely building, and I think we'll be proud to see it in the community.
I was just going to clarify one thing. Although I had a problem with the zoning change, I don't have a problem with the site plan. So the fact that I'm planning to vote in favor of it and prepared to make a motion. All right, with that prelude, I make a motion that the village staff, the Plan Commission approves the 10460 Washington Avenue site plan review, SP-24-19, subject to the listed conditions for approval.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any public comment on this? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Well, welcome to the village.
Yes. Welcome to Mount Pleasant.
All right.
Next on the agenda then is the sanctuary at Pike River preliminary subdivision plat application PSP 24-1.
Okay. So, David Trendell and, hold on, I'm closing this. And Tom McClayton of Primestone Residential applied to amend the zoning map for 34.41 acres between Old Green Bay Road and Royal Oaks Drive. This application is concurrent with, a zoning map amendment, which is next, which is ZMA 24-9. The application requests, divides the parcel into 57 lots. The application requests that 23 of the lots be zoned RL2, residential low density 2, on the edges of the property bordering the existing homes, and 34 of the interior lots be RM1, residential moderate density 1. So the village previously denied zoning map amendment application ZMA 2310 on January 8th, 2024. The Plan Commission and Village Board may consider applications, additional rezone applications within 1 year limitation, so much as that they're not more intense and they're substantially changed per 90-530.90. And then in staff's opinion that this application paired with, so the zoning application paired with the subdivision is significantly different from the previous one, especially with the zoning sort of buffer of the low density units. Let me move this down. So we're gonna, I think I pulled up the ZMA, okay. So the comp plan is for the area is for residential, and the village doesn't have an adopted area plan for local planning area 18. The parks plan doesn't recommend any protections for the project area, and neither does the bicycle plan. So kind of going through, there's a whole list of all of the different subdivision stuff to go through here, that I'm gonna go down a little bit. So one of the things is that street arrangements. So that the proposed street arrangements does not exactly align with the proposed map layer of the Village of Mount Pleasant. However, the proposed road layer is of insufficient detail, as several connections in that road layer are impossible or impractical due to the topography and property ownership arrangement. The proposed streets layout matches the functional classifications and are located in proper relation to existing and proposed streets, topography and natural features. The layout preserves a potential extension of Hillside Drive to Old Green Bay Road and connects 5 points of the road network. As you can see, there are 2 stub ends on Hillside and Little Prairie, and it's also connecting to Biscayne, Old Green Bay, and then south to Brown Road. The layout serves the public convenience and safety, land use, and future development. Emergency response times should fall in the area due to the connection of the Little Prairie Drive directly across from South Shore Fire Department Station 8. So if you can look at the map, Station 8 is right across from that exit out onto Old Green Bay. And that would provide direct access to Royal Oaks and other points in that subdivision from the fire department. Whereas before, they kind of have to go all the way around. The other thing is some of those subdivisions, because they're kind of unfinished and left hanging, they have to go way out of their way in order to get out. And connecting these roads would provide them with alternate means of egress. So the applicant has submitted 2 public walkways. One is through the middle of the plat, east-west across the middle of it, which is a continuation of those dedicated public pathways in the Royal Oaks subdivision. They're also proposing a dedicated public walkway around the wetlands area in the north, and proposing to basically engage with the village on possible negotiations to accept that walkway and the land itself as an in lieu of fee of the park impact fees in order to incorporate that into James Turek Park. So there would be basically a quarter mile or half mile walkway around the wetlands that would be paved. That would be kind of a great amenity for that park. The other thing is that they are proposing to dedicate a portion that would actually provide an official entrance for that park, because it currently doesn't have one that's visible from the street. There are a couple public pathways, but everybody just assumes that's somebody's yard that you're walking through. So it could stand to have a little bit better advertisement, as it were, and the developer has been kind enough to allow for that on the north side. So One of the things on this particular plat that we've asked for revision on is that the lots 49 through 57, which are on the south side of Hillside Drive, they're all too large for RL2 zoning. The maximum lot size in RL2 zoning is 9,600 square feet. All of them are at 11,000, with one at 15,000. This is a result because all of them are 160 feet deep. There's nothing you can do about that. Short of doing some really janky 58 feet wide lots, 58 by 160, staff recommends to downzone those lots to RL1 zoning, which I must say that to clarify that the difference between RL1 and RL2 is not very much when you're looking at the buildings. The main difference is lot sizes, and there's a significant amount of overlap, and all of the lots proposed could be in RL1 or RL2. The developer asked for RL2 because they can get slightly smaller side setbacks. But on the south end, they're perfectly fine with going to RL1 because those are larger lots. So a couple of the other things about the kind of conditions that we've put is that they should update to include vision triangles and provide us with a set of homeowners association doc and the covenants to bind the properties. Because they're all individual lots, they still have to have something that binds them together for common maintenance of stormwater ponds. We got one, it just wasn't really what we needed. We needed something more detailed and more specific to the site itself. None of the lots contain any elements that would require landscaping or screening. And they need to update the engineering to show planted street trees, street lamps, and sidewalks. I think that's generally about it. The plan for the RM1 zoning district, by the way, allows for 1 to 6 units. It's basically designed to be our missing middle or small condo building zoning district. Fourplexes, if you will, would be the most common that land in there. Now, while Taylor Harbor Crossing to the south is zoned RM1, it actually wouldn't meet that standard because most of those buildings are actually 8 units and not 6 or lower. So to the immediate south of this is basically a designation that's equal or greater. The plan is for basically 4 attached dwellings that share common walls. So basically just townhomes with rear, so alley access garages. So that saves, that basically prevents all of those curb cuts from going into the street, so you can actually have a usable sidewalk. This would be pretty interesting because over on the other side of 31, we also have a new subdivision that has some uses of alleys. So we haven't constructed alleys in a long time, so that will be interesting. All right, as far as fiscal impact. Okay, we can go on this one. Sorry. So the village assessor has estimated this total project value at approximately $49 million, and that's fairly conservative. We're using $225,000 to estimate for the 36 ranch units, $350,000 for each townhome, and $410,000 for the larger lots. The estimated taxable value per acre then is 1.4 million, and the estimated net value per acre is 1.3 million. The private to public ratio is 19 to 1, and 40 to 1 is a net positive target, indicating that the project's long-term taxable value will support its adjacent share of public infrastructure. Given the amount of roads in this development, I was actually surprised that it did so well. It does better than the subdivision that's following it, but that's usually a result of density. That's the kind of the thing. The other thing is that they are not asking, to this point, not asking for any financial assistance or anything like that. It's not in a tax increment district, so all of the lots will go immediately to the general fund and the tax rolls. Lastly, the additional staff considerations that this map amendment and development would support the village goals reported through its findings and housing affordability analysis, including increasing supply to address the village's low vacancy rates and increasing its variety in housing options. This application relates only to the zoning and split, but development of the property does require this land division application and site plan reviews. Okay, I've got that. So, and we also emphasize the importance of connecting all these roadways. It's like basically an infill that we never got done. All right, that's a lot. I'm sure there's questions, I'm sure there's comments, so let's just go off from here. We're considering this separately from the zoning map amendment only because the zoning map amendment has the request for, we have the additional condition of changing one of what they've asked for. We can even consider that first if you want.
Is it a major ask?
Just the down zone on the lots
The lots,
39 to 57.
yep, okay,
It's not that major.
okay. Tom?
Can you explain, I mean, obviously this shows a public park up in the north end. Other than showing this, a public park on the plat, preliminary plat and the final plat, what else is involved at the village's end of things to actually accept a park and the park becomes truly this village public park?
Well, so because this is not identified as a potential acquisition in the village parks and open space plan, we do not have to accept it for an in lieu of payment. We have the option, and we would probably need to amend that parks and open space plan in order to exercise that option, but it's subject to negotiation. We would never take a wetland or stormwater that is just not used and would require maintenance. We would need to accept a public amenity along with that. In this case, a completed walkway as well as the entrance and maybe a couple of parking spaces, and that entrance is what that would be.
Who's the we here? Who
We
makes
is
the
the village.
decision or does the review for the village?
That would be a combination of the community development director, the parks and rec manager, as well as the village administrator and the village attorney. And then that all would, of course, be, recommendation to the village board to kind of approve a contract and sign that.
So there would be an actual contract between the developer and okay.
There
As
would be a
well as
development
showing
agreement.
it on the final plat.
So, yeah, I mean, that's not the best showing of that, and they'll have to amend that, especially if it doesn't end up happening, but that is what it is.
Okay.
Well, lastly, there's one little smidgen. Like down there's like 30 feet on the other side of, but it goes out to Brown Road, but it's 30 feet. You can't plat a road through it. Those two property owners have been sharing it as a driveway. We just recommend that they do something with it, either like give it up or something, let those property owners split it or something. You can't just have it an outlot forever.
Second question I've got is, and it's true here, but in general, when we're doing these preliminary plat approvals, so this one's going to be subject to the several conditions for approval. Okay, so today we approve this, let's assume the board does the same in due course. What does it mean that our approval subject to the conditions? Does that put some onus and a timeline on the developer to address those concerns? And if they don't, then what?
So this is actually one of those processes where we get that double check automatically, because the final subdivision plat is what they need to get any building permits approved. So they still have to do civils and road layouts subject to, elevations and wetlands and all that sort of stuff. They basically give us a diagram for every 100 feet of the road, as well as all those kind of engineering stuff. All of that is due with the final subdivision plat. Between now and then, that's what they have to address. We don't accept finals that have outstanding, right, have outstanding conditions from preliminaries ever.
So the check in the system is when they come in with their final plat, staff goes back and says, hey, there was 9 things, are they addressed?
And then their guarantee is that basically if they come back with a final that's substantially the same thing as a preliminary with meeting those approvals or meeting those conditions, they get approved. That's not something that you can, if they meet everything that they need to, you can't really deny a final plat because you approve
Right.
the prelim.
That's it. All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Any other questions or concerns? Go ahead.
Chairman Davis, so we've seen this before. So I guess my question to the developer or to staff is, do they still plan on doing this as a rental community as they said they were going to do in the previous submittal?
I don't believe that that's,
We don't really
this.
require that or ask it, you know, that they do that. There could, like, there very well could be, especially since the 4 units are on a lot together, you know, that lends itself to being rental as opposed to ownership. However, staff, making this go through the subdivision plat process was intentional. Instead of having it all on one lot, which basically ensures that it's going to be rental owned by a large company forever. But by having these as individual lots, some that are very much similar, if the developer were ever to exit the market or to want to offload it, it becomes easier to sell it to individual property owners down the line, because you would have to, because each of them are separate parcels. That was on purpose. So whatever
There's
they're,
4 units, there's multiple units on one parcel. So each unit could not be divided.
those individual ones could be subject to condo plats at a future date, or they could be purchased by one person could own 4, and that's what they own, and they can either rent that, or maybe they have a really big family. I don't know. But the flexibility is inherent in the requirement of the subdivision. It's a lot easier to manage 4 than it is 144, or so on and so forth. And the other lots are just going to be standard 1 or 2 families.
So the lots backing up to the existing homes to the east, those are 2-unit lots?
They can be 1 or 2 unit per the zoning code. But RL1 allows for, R1 and RL2 can be 1 or 2 units, much like that's the zoning that's bordering all of them. We insisted on, and what we heard from you and the village board, that there be basically a buffer space, and that any current 1 or 2 family lot border another one that's like it and have that buffer. And as you could see, the entire, let me see, let me go this way. So this is the sort of the zoning picture. So the entire edge is RL1, which will be RL1, RL2. But all of those are 1 or 2 family lots. And that's the only thing that we basically say, okay, this is your subdivision, and you can ask what unit you want to put on it. And that's basically them and the building permit.
So, okay, so once again, there were promises of neighborhood meetings. I don't know if any of the neighborhood is here now. Obviously, the zoning will have to go to public hearing. But, you know, they had at one time said that they had presented this to the neighbors and had some kind of concurrence or some kind of cooperation.
Yeah, and the packet is the neighborhood communication summary. They did have a meeting after the last, you know, in that summary, it mentions a meeting that happened after the last, the denial. So, but that was back in early this year, February, March, something like that. Since then, staff we've been working with them very much to get a plat and get that approved, because without the plat, you can't have multiple zoning districts. So unless you divide the property, you can't have more than one zoning district. So in order to get what you guys wanted, which was like a buffer of low-density zoning, then it needed to be platted, which takes a long time to kind of get that going and so on and so forth, so.
So, and when you made mention of the zoning to the south of Brown Road being higher density, I believe you stated. Those
Taylor
are
Harbor.
owner-occupied condominiums, just note to the public. So, this is a very difficult project, in my opinion. And I think that it's nestled among single-family owner-occupied homes. And so I appreciate the fact that they have looked at the boundary and looked at better situating themselves against existing homes. Are the lots on Providence Drive on the north side of what would that be, the east side of Providence Drive, all those bigger lots, are those 4 or 6 units?
There's a couple that are 6,
I just
but
think that's too big of a building for that area.
So,
I'm
I mean-
sorry, I know the zoning allows it, but I think it's too big a building.
so the 6, as far as I can tell, are ranches. So they're 1 story. So there are 4 of them and stuff. That side is something that is probably going to be a big TBD based on stormwater calculations, which haven't gone through like final yet.
Right, in other words, where is the stormwater that's shown on this?
So there is a large stormwater pond on the north side and below those 3 lots that you just pointed out. And so there's wetlands and then there's stormwater. They're pretty much north of the Little Timber Drive. There's no Little Prairie.
So in other words, this preliminary plat, and I know the engineer's here, this preliminary plat, has it been, I think I'd like to hear from him.
Sure.
Just in terms of, what they know about stormwater and, because in my mind, a preliminary plat should very effectively show the stormwater element. In other words, we're approving a preliminary plat that has X amount of lots, and if they come back with something that's,
So it's on this one.
I don't want them to come back with the same number of units crammed in somewhere else because they didn't show us the stormwater.
It's on there. I was just kind of showing the zoning layer, but there's the very large stormwater pond adjacent to the wetland in the north, and the stormwater pond that's sort of to the north of that, and then the one that's behind those units on that sort of island there. And those are the low points on the property. And we, at the initial proposal, actually didn't have this amount of stormwater ponding on it. It was just the stuff to the north. So I can let the engineer speak to that if we don't have any more questions for me. And obviously I can get back here at any time.
Okay. Let's have the engineer.
Sorry.
If we could get your name and address, please.
Yeah, hi there. Mark Eberly with Nielsen Matson Barber, 1458 Horizon Boulevard, Mount Pleasant. So I apologize, I'm filling in for a couple of the other engineers in the office today who are spearheading this project, but it is my understanding that we have done preliminary stormwater calculations to support the plat that is shown today here. Stormwater generally drains from south to north, heads towards that larger wetland pocket that's shown in the park area. So a lot of work to be done as these things progress, but we believe we have preliminary calculations to support our plan. So,
And you've looked at the sewer too?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Nathan.
Oh, sorry to put you on the spot, Mr. Everly. Have you looked at the sewer too? That you may not be aware of any.
I would expect it has been explored in our office, but I cannot answer that. Sorry.
Thank you, that's okay. Thank you, Mark.
Any other questions of Mark? Okay, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff?
I also don't like the name.
If there's no other questions or comments, looking for the pleasure.
Put the language up,
Put the, which one up?
the resolution page up.
Oh, okay. There we go.
No, no.
Oh, no, that's the zoning one. I guess it doesn't have it, but that was my bad. I drew all this up and, you know, with Sam out, that was a really big PowerPoint to put together. So it doesn't have the language, but this is PSP 24-1. A motion would be to recommend approval to the village board. That would be on Monday.
Subject to conditions is listed.
Subject to all of the conditions, which there are a lot. But I mean, preliminary site plans, preliminary subdivision plats always have a lot of conditions on it because there's only so much you can do prior.
What's the pleasure of the commission?
Well, I'll make a motion, then I make a motion that the commission recommend to the board approval of the Sanctuary at Pike River preliminary subdivision plat application PSP-24-1, subject to the conditions.
Do I have a second?
I second.
Okay, we've got, I didn't see who came first there. Was that Frank or Tosh went first?
He can have it.
Give it to-
Tosh had
give
the
it to
second. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Questions, comments? Any public comments on this? If so, if you'd come up to the podium, name and address, please.
Hi there. My name is Ann Zog. I'm a resident at 3930 Royal Oaks Drive in Mount Pleasant. If you look at one of those plans, we are the street directly to the east. And I was one of the residents that was here on January 8th. If you were here for that fun evening, there was a full house of angry citizens. And I'm retired, so I'm the one that can make it here today. My friends and neighbors are working, and I'm sure they'll be here on Monday. What I want to communicate is communication. That has been the source of most of our frustration, and I'm sure you felt that during the January meeting, that a lot of this work, and we understand that it has to happen behind the scenes, but we did not have access to any of it until 15 minutes before the meeting in January. We didn't know it was going to be developed this way. We didn't know it was going to all be rental. We all feel we've been educated considerably, and we understand the law can't dictate if it's rental or not. But if you look at all the subdivisions that surround this piece of land, they're all single family. So if you go to the east, if you go to the north, if you go across 31, also single family, and a little bit to the south. And then you cross Braun Road and you get to that division that Robin spoke of. So communication, I would expect there to be a bunch of people here Monday that are frustrated that unless they email and ask, we don't get this stuff. I have the time. I emailed Robin, has been terrific about communication, and I appreciate that. But I'm one person. I can't get to all of the hundreds of neighbors. The developer did offer to have a coffee meeting in February following that January meeting. A few people were aware of it. I was out of town, could not make it. There were maybe 5 people there, and we talked via phone, but that's 5 out of hundreds, right? And so while it's appreciated, they need to give everybody access to all the information. I don't know how that happens, but that was frustrating for people that didn't know the developer had made himself available. So communication, public needs more information and more time to research, get a point of view so they can be here and be informed and communicate what their feelings are. That's Ann speaking. I'm not speaking for my neighbors. I do want to acknowledge the developer did reduce the density by 28%. That's appreciated, but it's still all rental. I'm on Royal Oaks Drive, and what I heard today is those lots could be 1 or 2 units. I have a problem with that. It impacts my neighborhood, so I think that's something we need to sharpen the pencil and do better on. And then the last thing, and I realize because of the size of the project, the traffic study may not be needed, but traffic will be impacted. I'm glad the fire and rescue has greater access. That's good for everybody's safety. But if you're a walker, which I am, or there are children, which there are many, that walk and ride their bikes in the streets, and the speed at which people travel from cutting through on 11 down Regency Hills, they cut through to 31, it's dangerous. It's really dangerous. I can't tell you how many times I have seen cars nearly hit small children on bikes, or me, or anybody else that's walking. So I think since we're doing all this work, why don't we do a little bit more and collaborate with Public Works? Is that the right department that handles that? Did I get it right? And do something to make our streets safer, because we know it's going to be developed. At least I do. I realize I'm not going to change that, but we can do a better job while we're developing it in terms of safety and all of that. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann.
Chairman Davis, just as a note to staff, Robin, can you explain to her as well as the remainder of the room, this subdivision will have sidewalks throughout?
Yeah, so we'll have sidewalks.
You are going to have some safety. You are going to be able to take your walking traffic and your kids off the street.
Does that mean all the neighborhoods or just the new one?
Just the new.
Just the new one will be constructed. As we were talking about earlier, we do have methods to kind of gear towards a fund to fill out sidewalks in other neighborhoods without having to specially assess everyone, which was the previous option, which never goes well. So we understand that we have a big job as far as sidewalks and safety for walkers. The first step is to require it on everything going forward. The other thing is talking about like street calming and traffic calming. DPW does have an ability to request and authorize speed bumps, which have, shown to be effective. Some people think they're annoying, but I think that's sometimes the point. And some other developments, newer developments, have what are known as basically curb bump outs that narrow the street at certain locations that basically force you to turn down and look at your surroundings and not just speed down a straightaway. Some of these cross sections are a little bit narrower. They're 60 feet instead of 66. So the asphalt will be 28 feet instead of 32. And narrower cross sections do result in slower speeds for the most part. All of those things are certainly things that we're considering and thinking about. And the developer can add in some traffic calming elements, but it's ultimately up to them. We don't require them. But if people are worried about cut-through traffic through existing subdivisions, asking DPW for speed bumps is something that is pretty cheap and easy to do and effective. I see a lot of other neighborhoods do the same thing.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Any other public comment? Let's take your first. Name and address, please.
I'm Kathleen Metz, and I live at 6015 Biscayne Avenue. My concern is this water. Now, when Mastercraft built in the road of Biscayne, that road, and I know you talk about high spot, low spots. Well, the high spot of Biscayne, when they blacktopped that, it had been done 3 times because it sank. When we lived there, we had a road right from our house out to Green Bay Road. In the spring of the year, we'd have to go to one side or the other of that high point until my daughter actually had a Capri and it sunk. And that was just the gravel road, but we always kind of went over. And luckily she had her axle, but my husband put 3 of the cinder blocks, basement cinder blocks, down that hole, had a rod, it's gone. It's an underground spring. So when Biscayne was put in, it sunk, the blacktop sunk the first spring. So then the second year, it sunk again, not as bad. The third year, I finally went to them and told them, it's an underground spring. And they finally, I noticed there's a few cracks in it now, but at least it hasn't sunk since. And the other thing I'm concerned with is when we walked the fields of that acreage, the water always ran like east to north or whatever. But a couple of my granddaughters and we were out in the field flying kites after Milk passed away, and before the land was sold. And we walked, and there was water flowing to the south. So then, that was when the subdivision crossed on the west side of 31. And now you notice, but Heidi's not here today, she lives on the one house just before the church on 31. And we were talking, when she was a child, she lived in that, her grandparents lived in that house, she bought it after her grandparents were gone. The ditches were always dry. Now there's holding water in those ditches. And where the water 2019, I don't know if you remember how much rain we got. And my sewer system was at the end of my acreage, and it was in water. It actually flowed up, and that was the first year that I ever had water in the basement. Never had a sub pump, nothing. And you blame it on the rain. And it just is so concerning is that this water, well, then this year, the neighbor to the east of me, to the west of me, with the 5 acres he was going to build, he took all the trees down, he took and was going to dig a driveway or whatever. Well, I was with the neighbor that day, and we were sitting at the table and looking outside, and he had a shovel. It went down in the ground. It shot up. It's an underground spring. He never had the DNR check it out. I know that the DNR checked, how many times did we have somebody interested in the land? And this is the first one, and that year they actually did soil drilling. But to me, the high points aren't always a study where you don't know those underground springs. It was unreal. And then I have water across my back lot, the back end of my lot. Water running because he was going to dig a basement, and I guess his permits, that's all at a hold now, but we never had that until the subdivision across the street went in. Then all of a sudden the water's flowing differently. Well, now you got Brown Road, it's flowing differently. They don't have storm sewers, ponds or whatever. And I really can't see how these homes without basements and everything, the soil drilling, I guess, is supposed to tell us that, but how deep do you go when you got these underground springs? I just can't see it. I ended up with water in my basement in 2019, so I blamed it on that. But then the neighbor, when Bastrop, they're a little bit higher than what we are. And so, it ran down like a river. I wish I had pictures, I tried finding, and it was coming up in my bathroom. It's just, I don't have faith on these storm sewers, and that, like I says, if you go down Biscayne, that high point on the entry, and you go like the 3rd and 4th house, that's where it always sunk.
Okay.
And that's about when you look at him when he went down with that shovel, and I wish I had a picture because, we both.
Sure.
Yeah, Ken and I, we just looked, Pat missed it, but it was like unreal. And so in the meantime, and I know I had Mount Pleasant come out and she took pictures and I didn't, even when I was walking, all I wanted her to tell me was when they're doing the construction, aren't they supposed to have those black fencing, And so when she walked out, she found my back flooded. And it's like, it's those underground springs that I don't know in that acreage.
Okay.
Like I said, I never had water in the south east corner until the subdivisions went in. It's all our farmlands.
Okay, thank you, Kathleen. And, you know, a project this size will have a lot of engineering done, and to support it. Any other public comment? Go ahead.
I'd just like to add that, I mean, a lot of, in the southeast portion of the village, you do have a lot of stormwater issues in general. And that's probably because a lot of these subdivisions went in before we required stormwater, you know, requirements or ponds or anything like that. So generally, sometimes when new developments come in with modern stormwater requirements, that actually improves the situation a lot. And the other thing is, like, you know, not building basements is, you know, a pretty good solution to that. You know, if you just don't want to build underground. So, yeah. So,
Passed, right.
you know.
Look at Foxconn. Look at all the water retentions they had. Look at the trouble they had in Gurney.
Yep.
Because of the farmlands
Okay.
not
Yep.
having it.
Okay, next.
Hi, Doug Anderson, 3425 Elwood Drive. So when I heard about this plan, I really thought it wasn't possible the commission would actually approve this. I moved in my house in 1988. At the end of my street down towards Highway 30 or Highway 11, there was property on the west side of Elwood Drive that was farmland. There was an old farmer there that plowed the land with a plow behind a horse shed. And me and my kids would stand there and watch him do this. When he sold his land, they wanted to build apartments there. We had meetings like this. We got that put down. Then he wanted to do condominiums. Again, more meetings. It wasn't passed. They have single-family homes there today, and it fits into the subdivision that we live in. Regency Hills Drive, Regency Hills subdivision was not there when I moved in. I could sit in my family room at night and watch the farmer with his plow plowing that field at night. When they decided to build a subdivision there, my wife and I thought, how much traffic is going to be increased coming down my road off of Highway 11? Sure enough, it practically doubled. My kids used to play baseball in the front yard before that happened, and after that, we had to be out there all the time making sure that cars weren't just driving down the road aimlessly and would hit my kids. Speed bumps aren't going to do anything to reduce traffic. Traffic is still going to be there. If no study has been done on how much traffic is going to be increased, that's a mistake, because it's going to be absolutely ridiculous when you put that many homes into that small of an area. And the park. There is absolutely a sign on Regency Hills Drive that states there's a park back there and there's a clear path between the two homes that are there. Having a parking lot, maybe that would be nice, yes, but that's not a developed park as far as I could see. It's just wetlands that they created a park in because the developer couldn't use that whole land, which I'm sure he wanted to build more houses in. The comment about alleyways, and there's a subdivision west of Highway 31 that has alleyways, I'd like to know where that is, because that is not around at all. I don't think that's accurate. There's no subdivisions out there with alleyways. So I don't know what this whole thing is about trying to squeeze all this property into the middle of a established subdivision, which is going to create nothing but chaos for everybody living there. The part that she mentioned about more cars on the roads, that's more cars on the roads where I live, where kids are already out there. That sidewalks in the new area are not going to do anything to alleviate that for those people. The people across the street from me just moved in. They have a small young daughter, and they're outside, and I know they're always watching their daughter to make sure she doesn't wander in the road, because the traffic is absolutely crazy coming down that road. So I don't understand why anybody would want to stick this property, or anybody would approve to put this in the middle of a subdivision. It was already stated there's nothing but houses, single-family houses around there. The Seasons property was just built on the southwest corner of 11 and Brown, or 31 and Brown Road. There's an area just south of that. If this developer wants to make some money and build a property like this, he should build it over there, just south of that, and put all the multifamily things in one spot, where you can set up traffic, go out into Highway 31, which is 2 lanes, It'd be much simpler to do that than to try to squeeze all this into the middle of a subdivision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Doug. Any other public comment? Okay. Any more questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman Davis, Chairman Driver, this is a really tough site. And I think that when we hear from people that have lived here in the neighborhood for many, many years and lived in the community when it was still having people plow their fields with horse and wagon behind them, we've evolved into a very different community now. And my family has personally felt the impact of that in roadways being widened and my front yard being taken. And so what I see with this project is a couple of things. Number one, in terms of our current comprehensive land use plan, these zonings match the plan. They match the plan. They are at the densities the plan calls for, and they are of the uses the plan calls for. A 2-unit, a 4-unit, a 6-unit property or lot. Personally, I would agree with you, Mr. Anderson, that there are better places in our community to put rental projects. Absolutely. And that is my biggest heartburn with this project. However, as it was stated before by the chairman as well as staff, that's not in our purview. We, as commissioners on the Plan Commission, or myself as a village trustee when it comes to the board meeting Monday night, I can't judge this project based on the fact that it's going to be for sale or not. A for sale project, a owner-occupied project or not. And believe me, I wish I could. So our job as Plan Commissioners is to uphold the code, to make sure that it follows the code, to make sure that our staff in their reviews are honoring the zoning code, the setbacks, and all the requirements. I personally would like to see the RL2 restricted to single family against the existing single family. And I will have under the zoning, we're not even talking about zoning yet, we're still on the plat. I will be making that recommendation at that time. But as far as the plat goes, it's very unfortunate to me that for me to vote against it, I don't really have compelling reasons to vote against it, other than reasons that are more personal in nature. I just wanted to explain that to you. We hope that we see you Monday night. We'll look forward to taking our vitamins and drinking a lot of coffee beforehand. But we're anxious to hear what you have to say because, again, these gentlemen haven't seen you since February. They haven't reached out since February. It was my understanding that there was a process going on all along with you all. So that's important to me as a trustee. So having said that, I appreciate the extra couple of minutes. There is a motion on the table, and I've said my piece.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? If not, we'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And we'll move right on to the South Green Bay Road zoning map amendment, ZMA 24-9.
Okay, I'm gonna do this one from here because my laptop died, and so now it's plugged in, so I don't wanna carry it back over there. That's how long we've been here. And the reason, I think now I know the reason why to do this afterwards is because in order to even entertain the zoning map amendment change that was on the board, that it had to be split. By the way, before you, this is basically a layout from, and pictures from the development that these developers have constructed in Summers, which is our neighbor to the south. And I think it's like Savannah Pike, Savannah Creek, something like that. And those have recently gone up. I'm not sure if these would be exactly indicative because, as I was saying, that a lot of the units will be alley served, so they'll be saving all that concrete that's in front there and presenting more face. So this is the zoning map amendment. That's just pretty much the same intro, but specifically talking about in January, they requested to rezone the entire 34 acres RM1. And the village board and planning commission at the time requested that they establish some buffer areas and, you know, low density zoning. And so that's what has been accomplished through the subdivision plat. And that is the breakdown, as it were. And as I explained before, the lots on the bottom, 49 to 57, we recommend that those be zoned to RL1 because of the lot size. There are also a couple of other lots that are slightly oversized, but there's a provision in our subdivision code that if there's not enough to create an additional lot, one lot can get the remainder because it's better than it being unused. So that's the cases on those blocks. So as far as the distinctions between single family and two family and stuff like that in the zoning code and the building code does not distinguish between the two. That both one and two families are addressed under the UDC and not the commercial building code. And each lot has the opportunity to have, you know, two primary units, a primary unit and a secondary suite or mother-in-law suite, as well as a backyard cottage or accessory dwelling unit, ADU. So everyone has that right, including everybody who's standing up here. With it, I mean, maybe they have covenants that restrict it or whatever, but, you know, it's not something that's been taken away from them by the zoning. So in all intents and purposes, those match, the zonings match. That's about it. It's mostly the same, and then now my computer died again. But I can take questions.
Good, then we can lay this over. We don't have to worry about it since your computer's not working.
I don't recommend it because of the conditions required.
Right. Tom?
I have a question. I think I have a question popped up by one of in your notes. I think these were notes for this particular item. Open space plan identifies this parcel as priority protection area within the Pike River watershed plan. So in what respect does this application before us address and take into appropriate account the priority protection area within the Pike River?
Is that
Plan.
is that this plat or is that the next one, the Hoods Creek one?
The Giddings Road?
Yeah, Giddings Road is the
Next item.
next item.
I'm sorry, I was trying to make notes off the digital at home. So this is on the next one then? Okay.
Yeah,
Let's table my remarks until we get there.
yeah, and any kind of environmental area is all in that northern wetland area, which I was discussing earlier. So
Okay.
So, Chairman Driver to staff, so the RL2 will allow a single or two-unit property.
so are all one. Yeah.
So is there a way to restrict the zoning along Royal Oaks Drive to single-family, one unit per lot?
No. I mean, not that's legal or recommended. I mean, you could basically
Well, the way
try.
I look at it is when we didn't like this the first time at the
Yeah.
board, it was because there were four units per lot on the new development side to one lot on the east side, on the Royal Oaks Drive side. And so now, by allowing the RL2 with 2 units per lot, we haven't done anything. We haven't done anything to reduce the impact up against those lots. They're still gonna have 4 units up against them.
That's not necessarily the case. They've submitted lots, not buildings, and
Well,
they
and I
don't.
think that's another way that they've gotten around the site plan, because those buildings you're showing us, I've seen the project in Summers, and those buildings you're showing us, I hope you're gonna be adding some architectural features to them.
So each of that
They don't
review.
have any site plan review or any architectural review, so they got out of that by going to the plat.
Well, they had to go to the plat in order to zone it two different zones. So like, I mean, sorry, I don't mean to make it light of it or anything like that,
I
but
think you are, and I think that we're gonna have a neighborhood of people here on Monday night that we're gonna have to answer to. And the goal all along on Royal Oaks Drive was to eliminate the 4-to-1 ratio of home sites up against Royal Oaks Drive. That has not been accomplished,
that it is. So those are 70 feet lots. They're 70 feet wide.
but they can have 2 units on them.
They can, but they not necessarily will. Any lot we
Come on.
approve.
Wait, stop, drop the mic. Okay, I'm not gonna argue with you. We can go through this. I'm not gonna stay here all day for this.
Any lot in the
But
village can have 2
I'm-
units on
I'm
it.
gonna be very, I'm not happy with that. I'm not satisfied with that.
I mean, what you're
It's up to the developer. Who is it up to choose what they put over there? It's up to the developer.
they can't choose to put something that's restricted only to single-family homes, because that's not available in our zoning code.
Well, then we need to take a look at that.
I recommend not, because that's been the case for 4 years, and the sky has not fallen. We have not had a very
We haven't had a
surge.
site like this. We have not had a
We've-
site like this fill in with 4 units up against individual single-family lots, Robin.
I mean,
I was there when we wrote the zoning code. I understand completely, and that was always my concern. Always my concern. So it hasn't changed. My concern hasn't changed in 4 years. So I will stop debating with you, because that's inappropriate.
I mean, it's appropriate. That's why we're doing the meeting. One of the things is that each of these are 70. Those particular lots could be a lot smaller as RL2s. They're 70. RL2 can go down to 40. These are basically,
How high can RL2 go?
they can go to 80. So they're at pretty much the top end of RL2, and they would be just fine as lots in RL1 too. But there's the setback issue. That's the only difference. The height is 35. They could do 1s or 2s. I mean, either one is up to market conditions or anything like that. The Leo Living project had 1s and 2s. Like that single family rental is a thing.
The Leo Living was in an appropriate neighborhood.
There was no neighborhood around it.
Exactly, thank you.
So one of the things is that this development was always slated to be infill via some way. That we had the road stubbed in, it was just open. It's been on the market for a while. What it's going to land that's feasible, with the ratios and stuff like that, with how much roads are going in. Because for the most part, aside from the alleys and maybe one of the drives, the pavement that you have there is all required. And unless you're doing $700,000 plus homes, you're not going to pay for that. It's just not going to work. And
Are you telling me that? Seriously, are you telling me that?
this also for the benefit of the audience too. Like I know you've done this a while. You know the penciling and how difficult that is. But I mean, they have basically a mile of local roads, a quarter mile of alleys, sidewalks, stormwater, stuff like that. So. Yeah, we mentioned that, we talked about that a lot in the January meeting, is what is possible to basically support this amount of public infrastructure. The ones immediately to the south are 8-unit condos, which is technically, that's multifamily. It's owner occupied, yes, but it's multifamily. The alleys that that I was talking about are in the new subdivision. That's the Bear subdivision at the corner of KR and 31. That's just now starting to go up because of the water agreement. That would be the site south of the Seasons.
Right,
It's
for
already,
Mr. Anderson, that's where the alleys are currently being built.
yeah, that site's already taken.
Across on the west side, south of the Seasons, in that Bear development.
No, I was just, no, it's just
About
that.
half a mile away.
As south of, they were mentioning something about putting something south of the Seasons, and that development is south of that. And that contains a mix of single-family twin homes, duplexes, small multifamily and large multifamily, as well as some walk-up commercial. It's a pretty comprehensive mix of a development. Interested to see how that goes. But yeah, so as far as, you know, this particular one and how that's zoning code, there's not a whole lot lower you can go as far as what zone that we would recommend. Even if we said all of it's RL1, then they could still basically, RL1 goes down to 55 feet. So you could still get 2 or 4 to 1 on that side. But the thing is we have duplexes over here in Heartland Village, and no, those are wider, sure, but that doesn't reduce the value of Heartland Village. Those are among the highest value homes in the community. They even have 20-unit apartments within, you know, shouting distance. And those are extremely valuable. So there's a way to do a mix and a blend properly, and we feel that this phases properly, and we don't know how the mix is going to go, if the, you know, whatever rents or not. And sorry.
So there's no way to restrict those lots that are butt Royal Oaks to just single family?
Not from our zoning code. I mean, they can do so as a, you know, private covenant or whatever, but
The developer could restrict those lots to single-family only.
Developer
so
more than likely will not want to restrict it, but I
Well,
was just wondering if we can.
it's worth talking to them about it.
Exactly, Frank, thank you. I think that should be something that staff should bring up to them, so they're prepared to have that discussion Monday night.
I can't recommend, I can't suggest the developer do something that's not according to our zoning code.
Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
No, I can't.
Yes, you can. You say it would be a good idea, I think, that you restrict these, because that's the hassle you're
No, I cannot suggest that.
No, I would have to support Robin on this. That's nothing that we would want to get involved in.
getting. Okay, then.
I agree with Frank completely. You know, again, having a little experience in this game, I've been asked many times by staff and communities to take exception or do something, you know, exceptional to the code because of the people that in the community surrounding it care about it. And, you know, we've had to take a hard look at that as a professional developer. So I'm with Frank on that, but Robin, you know, we'll get to Monday night. We'll get to Monday night. That's all I can say. We'll get to Monday night. And it'll be an interesting discussion.
All right, that being said, any other questions or comments? If not, I'd be looking for a motion.
I can't see very well.
Yeah, Rob, do you have the verbiage for the motion?
Yes. That is it, on the bottom there.
Well, to get some closure one way or the other, I'm prepared to make the motion.
Please?
I move that the Plan Commission moves to approve ordinance 20-24, 2024, South Green Bay Road zoning map amendment, ZMA 24-09, with the conditions that PSP 24-1 must also be approved and recorded for the zoning map amendment to take effect, and the lots to be to the south of Hillside Drive, lots 49-57 be zoned RL1.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Any public comment? Hearing none, roll call, please. Robin? On the question, on the motion?
Well, I'll go bottom top. Okay. Van Beckham?
Yay.
All right. Risler?
Yes.
Myers absent. Wozanowski?
Yes.
Washburn?
No.
Driver?
Yes.
Okay, 4-1. That passes, and that will be recommended as such to the village board on Monday, where the public hearing is also occurring. Okay,
All right.
break.
2:40, yeah, let's take a 5-minute break.
You can keep going. Jeff's the only one left.
Oh, is he the only one left?
Yeah, don't make him stay here. Let's keep going, if that's okay. I mean,
Well,
if
let him
anybody.
stretch his legs a minute.
There's two projects left.
There's.
You've got the Aurora
Oh,
Medical.
that someone's here for.
Oh,
He's Giddings
Okay.
Road and Hoods Creek.
Oh, and then there's the Spring Creek one, but I had to
Well, we can take a break for that one if you want, Robin.
go
but-
manual, 'cause my.
Tom, we're gonna take a break after this one. Let's do this one.
All right.
8626 Gidding Road Comprehensive Plan Amendment, CPA 24-2.
All right, so this is, the applicant applied to amend the village's part of the transportation element in the multi-jurisdictional comp plan for Racine County for a proposed roadway extension from International Drive to Durand Avenue. The applicant wishes to reconfigure the roadways to match the settlement of Hoods Creek preliminary plat, PSP 24-2. The village staff had added additional neighboring amendments to this application to remove some of the neighboring proposed roadways to reflect their final location. So the proposed changes are in front of you. Essentially, we just had a bunch of roadways on the northern part of the village that didn't really make a whole lot of sense and didn't match. The submission of the remainder of the subdivision plat for the settlement at Hoods Creek did not match either the proposed roadway layer or the preliminary plat from ages ago. So they had to resubmit a preliminary plat and then reconfigure the road layer. This reconfigures it to kind of acknowledge that the very small chance of connecting 90th Street across the Hoods Creek, but leaves that possibility open. There's a lot of developable land up there if it ever gets there. But there's, a lot of challenges to develop up there, but through some hard work, there's opened up some opportunity to put some more housing up there. So it hopes to have a plan. All that's required here is to basically request that the Plan Commission put this on the agenda for a public hearing at least 30 days after, at least have at least 30 days to review the proposed amendment for a public hearing. So it'll go to a public hearing before the village board, then back to Plan Commission, then back to village board.
Yeah, I think this, makes sense. This is a plat that Jeff's been working on for years and slowly but surely finishing. And so these are, again, comprehensive plan amendments so that the roadways match our plan. So having said that, I don't have a problem with it. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but I'd be willing to make a motion to approve 8626 Giddings Road Comprehensive Plan Amendment CPA 24-2
We're moving to send it to a public hearing.
and moving to send it to public hearing.
Yeah, it's like direct staff to send a copy of the proposed
Oh,
plan.
I'm sorry, I didn't read, do you want me to read all of that?
No, just say as shown.
As shown on the village staff's recommendation for the plan commission.
Second.
To set up the public hearing, yeah.
Yeah, she said that. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Jeff, anything from you? No. Okay. All right. All right, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
You've been through enough. You can't even get mad at us.
Sure I can.
I mean, that would, so we might have to basically just condition the final plat on that going through, but, you know, that's pretty easy to done. I mean, these are, yours is already submitted as far as the preliminary plat, and as I was talking about in the other one, if they make sense for topographical reasons, we can still approve it, but changing the comp plan on the back end is cleanup. And for local roads, for collectors and arterials, it would have to be done before even finalizing it, if that makes sense? Or did it sound like I was just
Well,
waffling?
so this it goes plan commission, public hearing, which has got to be 30 days out.
Back to
And then
plan,
back to plan commission for what?
because the,
In other words, did we do that same process with all of the Microsoft
Yes.
land
Yeah.
use changes?
it's a 3-month process, because like you can't land, the way we set up our calendar, you can't land the village board, the next village board that's 30 days out will be after the next plan commission, and then it goes back to plan commission.
Well, you want your final plat to be approved next month, is that correct? And then you have to build it, and then you have to build it? So you're not gonna record it in 2024, are you? Okay, so you're gonna be fine, because this will all be done by the time you're ready to record in 2025. There's no reason why this won't be approved by the board. You know what I mean? It's not gonna hold you up. Yeah, it's kind of wonky, but he's gotta build it yet.
We,
so-
Absolutely. Right.
we didn't write that comp plan, so we would have phrased it a little bit better. Okay, settlement of Hoods Creek Edition 5,
We're gonna have a 5-minute break here now.
just right now.
Let's just push through.
Why don't we get Jeff out of here?
Well, then we have one
Somebody-
item after that.
What?
But then we just have one item after that.
As far as I'm concerned, let's wrap it up.
Okay.
I only got up
I mean, I
because
don't know
We're
what
good
a
for
break
it?
is
Let's
for.
plow through.
plow through.
Do it.
So this is
Unless you
the
gotta go.
where's the thing? So applicant applied to create 66 lots. The plat finishes the settlement of Hoods Creek subdivision extending westwards from the current terminus, then southwards towards Giddings Road. A majority of the land is currently zoned AG2. However, the property owner would like to amend the zoning map for R1 for each final plat phase stemming from this preliminary plat. It follows the land use element of the comp plan. The bicycle plan identifies a trail across the northern portion of the property along the Hoods Creek. However, this pathway is part of a larger restoration effort along the creek corridor and not required at this time. A park plan identifies an environmental corridor area within the northern portion. Site is open space lands for preservation. The plat avoids disturbing the environmental corridor except for a small portion of lot 137. Deputy Public Works Director Lindsay Weber confirmed via an on-site investigation that the vegetation within lot 137 was mostly ash trees and buckthorn. Thus, the minor disturbance is acceptable. So, going through the Chapter 74 standards, it meets most of the requirements. With the fiscal note, at 51 developed acres, the sort of the revenue to cost ratio is 2-to-1. The private to public ratio is 9-to-1. The estimated taxable value per acre is $799,283. Net value per acre is $712,062. And the public liability repayment, which is the number of years until the escalated tax contributions are greater than the escalated infrastructure replacement cost. So basically that is assuming that they're gonna be putting in the roads this time. But the clock's already ticking for, when we have to, they're gonna be ours. So how long is it going to take before we get the required tax money to do the second payment? And we are estimating 21 years. So
That's pretty good though.
that's decent. At least it's like not greater than the lifetime of the roads, which I would
Exactly.
advise super great caution. The other thing is that I believe that the estimated value per lot is probably on the conservative side. We always err on the conservative side. So we recommend that the Plan Commission move to recommend approval of this with the recommended conditions. Those are homeowners association documents, shoreline zoning boundaries, amending those, update the plat to show block numbers. They should be numbered consecutively. Update the on-site civil engineering infrastructure to show the installation of a public street lamp at corner of intersections. And update the engineering infrastructure plans to show street trees. And yeah, I think that's what I got. And this site also does not require a TIA because the number of lots is under 100.
I think another important thing to note on this site is it's non-TID, so this is immediate tax increment for the village in single family and in housing that we desperately need. So the housing study that came out last month that was presented at Gateway said we need to build, many units per month or per year for the next 5 years to catch up with the void that's out there. So congratulations, Jeff, for bringing this forward.
One comment I have, I've been working hard with Sam for a month, and that is not the right plat.
Oh,
That because that is the not. Oh, that is not the right plat?
Close together?
is it the same number of lots? There's 2 additional lots? How is it different? You shouldn't have said it. Down at the entryway. All right, so down at Giddings Road and the entryway of Hoods Creek Pathway, you were able to, number one, put 1 lot on the east side, which would have been, you must have moved the road a little bit, because you've got a wetland there, and then you put a lot up against the wetland. So you added 2 lots, and you did something without lot 11 and created a lot.
Street layout is about the same, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so the one I have is dated October 14th, so, and that could just be some miscommunication on our part, because I had to put this together, within the last day or so.
So basically, all of your analysis just got better because he added 2 lots.
It does.
It sounds to me, me and Sam talked about the analysis too, I don't think that got updated, those numbers you're using.
Okay.
I think he used 375, the average price of these houses is 700.
Yeah. Well, Robin acknowledged that it's lower than what he spoke of.
We have to, so,
For the lot, maybe.
that's why I kind of put it out. So we have to kind of use some standard number. And one of the standard numbers is basically like a median new home price. And that was, $375. And acknowledging that this one is going for significantly over that, you guys can adjust that in your head and do that kind of math on your own, because everybody knows that these have been going for higher, and we'll adjust those numbers correspondingly. But we can't do guessing. And while I know that they are going to sell for that more, like I would bet $9,900 on it, but that is the median one, and we try to use that to standardize the comparison, right? Like apples to apples.
And Jeff, we appreciate your speaking up in regards to that. We have the tax assessor, Dan, is here with us, and I'm sure his ears were open too, and he'll be looking for all of those final. Okay.
Well, the other thing is, if I knew, I could get a more accurate one if, I knew the sizes of each the homes that are going up, and so that's that is a big variable on that the lots versus the homes. So, but yeah, I get it.
Okay.
let's move on then.
Moving on.
Mr. Chairman, does anyone else, if no one else has any questions, or I'm prepared to make a
I
motion.
have a question, and that's relates the one I brought up earlier. I just want Sam to briefly address to what extent review has been done on the priority, impact of this development and taking into account the Pike River watershed plan. Because this is, quite a few houses, and it is close to Woods Creek. So I just want some peace of mind. The requisite review has been done and analysis is acceptable to staff.
Okay, so if I were Sam, I'm going to channel him here. I'm just playing with you. That, the analysis of Lindsay is almost always spot on about that particular thing. We have a lot of environmental corridors that are kind of just broad brushes, but when you go out there, it's not what you want to preserve. It's basically all invasives and or like ashes that need to get ripped out anyway. And there basically has to be a lot of work done to restore that watershed, to bring it back. The only way you're going to do that is with adjacent development, putting sort of money into those impact fees. So that's basically our funding mechanism to do the work to get that restoration done. And that's pretty much the trade-off there. And I'm pretty sure that because it's such a good amenity and part of this particular subdivision, I'm sure taking care of it and stuff like that is important to the developer and, the people that live there. So
I think as a backup to that too, I don't remember exactly what year it was, but I want to say it was when Jeff started his first phases of this. The village at that time was working with FEMA and did a study all along the Hoods Creek, and there were floodplain boundary adjustments made, and there were some expanded areas for floodplain, Tom, so that Hoods Creek in that particular area has been looked at pretty hard. And I know that there were adjustments made at that time to the original. This preliminary plat has been in existence since like 2003 with the former developer. So I know there was a lot of study done. There were improvements made to the hood, and then there was also additional setbacks added to these plats along the hood to compensate and look out for the natural environment along there. If that's helpful, that's a little history before time.
But for purposes of this subdivision plat, the effect of any consequence is just that the set aside of the land, which is, as you say, just, kind of overgrowth. But at least the land set aside with the hope down the road there'll be funds available to improve this particular set aside land as well as whatever else
correct.
makes sense when the time comes.
Correct.
And then I guess I just want to clarify, we're going to vote on what's in front of us today, this particular plat subdivision, not the one that's been in, another plan that's a little bit possibly more refined. We're voting on what's in front of us, correct?
So, that was submitted. Did you upload the new one to the OpenGov? So I would say kind of review the changes that are that have been in front of you
Right.
with the 2 additional lots. That has been officially uploaded. It's just with the absence of Sam, I didn't catch it.
Well,
So
I think the 2 additional lots can be put into the final plat of subdivision. I don't know that they're properly before us.
We'll have, so this one will be here, and then we'll be able to get the right one in for the village board approval for sure.
Okay,
So-
that's fine.
Okay.
Do that cleanup for the village board, that you've got that time. I just don't, for the purpose of the record, want to confuse things as to what we're voting on and what today's record is. Today's record is going to be a vote on this preliminary plat before us that's now up on the screen.
Yeah, okay, we can vote on this one and just kind of acknowledge that there are some changes in the
That's fine.
in the pipeline, and that will be voted on the village board. Does anybody have any significant disapproval of the 2 additional lots?
No, that's
Okay.
not gonna say, you can just present that to the board that we are in agreement with it, but we had to vote on what we have.
That is a good way to put it. All right.
With that,
Do we have a motion?
do we have a motion?
I thought we did.
Has a motion been made? I don't
I
remember.
don't think so.
I don't think so. Nope.
All right, I'm prepared to make a motion then.
All right.
I move to recommend approval of the settlement at Hoods Creek Addition 5, preliminary subdivision plat PSP-24-2, subject to the recommended conditions listed below.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jeff.
Jeff, I was just thinking, like, when you're saying, yeah, with the value, that to double it, then that would put it, that would make my other comment is like, oh yeah, they need to be $700,000 homes. It's exactly the same. You're right. It comes together. All right.
Thank you, Jeff, for your patience.
Thank you.
I don't know if that came out right.
All right. 6611 Spring Street Certified Survey Map, CSM 24-4.
I think we talked about this one a while back, that Aurora was doing something.
Yeah, this one, I thought this would have been done a long time ago.
Before he starts, I want to move that Nancy approach the village administration and recommend they get him a battery backup
I
for his
mean,
computer.
it was,
I think that's a proper board.
I thought you were gonna say get him a name tag.
or
You keep calling him Sam, Tom. I thought you wanted us to
Robin,
get him
Robin.
a name tag, but I will definitely see that he gets a battery backup.
I have a plug, and there's plugs up here. I just,
Robin,
yeah.
That's
I thought
something
him-
Sam would do.
I don't know. All right, so the applicant applied to split one parcel located at 6611 Spring Street into two. The map proposes a 5.6 acre lot 1 intended for sale and development and 3.3 acre lot 2, which the Aurora Medical Clinic occupies. The zoning district is RM2 with a legacy PD on it. I think that was something related to the OOS zoning or something. It's basically to allow the medical clinic on it. So, and then the comp plan identifies this area as residential. And we have identified Spring Street as a proposed corridor for on-street trail or bicycle way, and North Sunny Slope Drive as an existing on-street trail or bicycle way. Southeast Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission identified Spring Street as a recommended corridor for enhanced bicycle facility and Vision 2050. The applicant, so most of the conditions that are about this are about documents that they needed to provide, record, shared maintenance, update the CSM to show the proposed zoning within and adjacent to proposed land division, minimum lot area, so on and so forth. The main thing about this is that the frontage is being counted as Spring Street, even though access is going to be off Sunny Slope. That wouldn't be a legal frontage, but that is how it's going. I think they actually do have an access available to them directly onto Spring Street via the CSM, but I think the county would shut that down if it came to with any density behind it, because it's mid-block and all of that sort of stuff. So the applicant didn't provide any potential development plans for this, so we didn't really have any fiscal analysis that we could do. However, the existing is currently assessed at $7.8 million, which equates to $884,000 per acre. So the existing medical clinic provides most of that value, and so the resulting development would be well over $1 million per acre. There is basically sidewalk, street lamps, same stuff as usual. Landscaping plan, and location size and invert elevation of any existing sanitary or storm sewers. I think this one is something that's been kind of in the pipes for a while. Most of the conversations I've had about this particular property as been circling around as maybe senior housing or assisted living, considering its adjacency to the Aurora Health Clinic.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Sam, can you put up a page that shows your conditions?
Yeah.
Robin. I'm sorry, guys.
I don't have it for this page. So,
I wish it was there because my reaction to this application is the 7 conditions, each and every one of them could have been, should have been completed and shown on this CSM before it comes to us. And once again, and this is one of my consistent complaints, is often things come to us with cleanup and details not shown that should be shown. Your conditions almost take up an entire page of single type. And I know staff wants to be accommodating, and yeah, okay, this stuff can be caught, but doggone it, we're here to approve something, and this stuff should be on it.
well, this time you can totally call me Sam for this one because this was on him. I'll throw him under the bus
don't
right
care.
here.
Listen,
Honest to God.
It happens a lot, and I wish on occasion, staff would hold an applicant's feet to the fire and says, listen, you can take this to the board, but you really should be addressing this stuff before staff is going to recommend approval. And
Yeah,
I'm going to
that-
tell you, I'm going to vote no on this one just because, again, it's a protest on my part that this happened here and it keeps happening.
No, and actually, thank you. Because
And
every
we're
time.
talking easements. We're not talking tree plantings.
No, we hear you,
Sanitary
and don't think that this is something like shouting into the wind or something like that, because we take this, what you're saying right now, and we say, our plan commissioners don't like it when, and then use that to push most of our applicants to a reasonable state. And so we do take that into consideration. And, it's probably why some of the previous applications took so long to get to the board, because we're like, we can't bring this in front of it. However, there is a certain level of, okay, well, if they pay the fee, we can't statutorily deny them. We can hold some for sure if they are missing certain things, but if it kind of push comes to shove, basically they get their time in front of the board and the board can just say no because you haven't completed the requirements.
I understand,
So-
but then don't recommend approval.
Okay.
Tell them they have a statutory right to have this sent on to the commission, but I'm going to tell you that I, the staff, am not going to send it with my recommendation. And
That's
I'll
fair.
send it, but I'm not going to recommend it until, again, when I look at this, we're talking about showing existence of storms, sewers, drains, showing easements for public access. Again, I'm not going to hold them up on trees, but show the location of existing zoning. I don't think this stuff is inconsequential, and
We have been having some pushback about requiring a lot more information directly on CSMs than a lot of other localities do. And Chapa doesn't work with us that often. Nielsen, Mass, and Barber does. But you're right in that this is submitted August. So,
and it's been kicking around for years, so it's
Yeah.
not exactly new. They've had, it's been kicking around. It's within an existing project. Presumably, it's the same surveyor who's worked with this entity forever. This is just laziness on their part.
I'm supporting you, Tom, 100% on this one. I
So-
totally agree.
So, and again, I think in the past, what we've argued in that regard for CSM's missing information was simply the quality of the information. And in this case, based on a couple of the commissioners' concerns, I will make a motion that we lay this over, that we lay over item 6611 Spring Street Certified Survey Map CSM 24-4, and let the applicants come back with the, at least most of those conditions that are objectionable satisfied.
And hearing y'all's reasoning, valid.
I
So was it-
agree.
was
I
that a
think
motion?
that's a good
That was a
approach.
motion, that was a motion.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second her motion.
Okay, second, the motion is a second. Now, any further discussion? Do they have a timeline on this, Robin?
I don't care.
Okay, all right.
If they had one, they should have made sure that everything was done, right?
Had a motion and a second. I'll call a question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right.
Before we move to adjourn, I just want to take a second to commend Robin on organizing, orchestrating, understanding, and very effectively presenting several different projects with all sorts of input, questions, and remarks in an efficient manner, which I appreciate.
I second that.
Aw,
Thanks. You know, my heart goes out to Sam. I know why he missed today, and but at the same time, I was like, because this is the biggest agenda we've had this year, and
with a lot of interesting projects on it, so.
you're telling me. And what's funny is when I had that rezone last year, I was by myself at the plan commission when I had COVID, and I was in the back with my mask on.
Oh, I remember that.
So it's just,
Ooh.
I just feel like, you know, maybe I'm like Rogers stepping in when Favre got hurt or whatever, you know, and I have to like take the mantle, and hopefully you guys haven't noticed a quality drop off.
Even better, you were like Favre replacing Don Makowski. That's the level of which you rose here.
Well, that's a little bit before my time, but yes, thank you.
It's a compliment, trust me.
Thank you.
I would also like to recognize Nancy's and Tom's compassion and level of detail in analysis here. Sometimes I agree, sometimes don't, but I appreciate that level.
Oh, no, I'm always like want feedback, input, and stuff like that, and it helps. It always helps. And you know, we try to, you know, be one of the best, you know, staffs as far as this kind of stuff in the area, and I think we are. And a part of that is for the support you guys give us and the healthy feedback.
And the feedback.
And we don't like to necessarily push, like use that soft power and be like, I don't like this or whatever. But when you guys give us very detailed feedback, it's really easy to know how you're going to feel about stuff. Like I know if Joe were sitting here right now, he'd bring up screening. Like he'd bring up landscaping.
Bike path.
He'd bring up bike paths.
We
and,
we did miss some of Joe's, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
And so, those kind of things, and knowing what you guys, making vocal about what you care about and what you're looking for, it helps us do our jobs better. So, thank
Right.
you.
All right, we all love each other.
We need a
Move
motion.
to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
We're adjourned.